Hello, welcome to the Big Scuba Show.
My name is Ted Harty, and I'm excited to be on the Big Scuba podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Big Scuba podcast. My name is Ian. I am your dive master and co-host for this episode on the Big Scuba. As always, I'm not here alone. I am talking with my co-host. What?
Yes, I'm the other co-host, Gemma, and we're recording this remotely today, so we're in separate places, aren't we?
We are, yes. And,
talking with.
Yes, and so thanks for downloading this episode. We have got a great guest for you for this episode. His name is Ted Harty, and he runs Immersion Freedive out in Florida. So we're gonna be talking to him all about freediving and some of the skills and I think we talked about some of the human factors and things like that as well.
Yeah, and he did start out as a scuba diver as well, but obviously he's developed into freediving and very big on social media and does daily posts about different aspects of freediving.
Yeah, if you follow us, I often share his daily posts and give him a like. And but if you look on LinkedIn or Instagram, go there and you can follow him yourselves, and you'll see his daily posts. But we'll come to Ted in a little while. Gemma, do you want to just start off by telling people, just in case we've got some new listeners, what do we talk about?
So we are the Big Scuba podcast, and we talk to people connected to the watery world. So they can be divers, free divers, marine conservationists. We've spoken to artists, we've spoken to astronauts, filmmakers. So really, anybody that's got a message connected to the watery world, and we're here to hopefully inspire people to look about getting connected to the watery world, whether they be divers, non-divers, or going for a snorkel.
Can we just be clear though? We don't just talk to people who've done all these fantastic things.
No, we don't.
Because we can't all do these. A lot of us have all got day jobs and families and things like that. And some of us, we just like going for a dive on a Saturday, when we get a chance. Now, we also like to talk to people like that because we like to, what's the word? Keep it real.
Yes, so we've spoken to people that are just passionate about diving wherever they are in the world.
Just like getting in the water.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great. Then we keep connected to these people and we follow their journeys. And we've been going almost 4 years, and we've made some amazing or met some amazing people and followed their journey through their scuba world and their filmmaking progress. It's been really inspiring. And
we've always said in the world of diving, if you start getting into diving, is that once you start, you never know where it's going to lead you. So
exactly.
Always good to keep an open mind and a passport, because you never know.
No, exactly. Well, yeah.
And as our friend Phil Shorts once told us,
got to find the magic in every dive.
Find the magic, in every dive.
And I think that applies to life, really, not just diving. You've got to find the magic in every day.
Yeah, there we go. So there we are. And I live in Bungay, and it's the centre of the universe. There's tons of magic in Bungay. If you're ever out this way. Anyway, we digress. What we've been up to? We have last weekend. The Saturday we were at Raysbury.
Yes, so that was a new dive site. We'd never been there before, and we had our first visit there. We did discuss that on last week's podcast.
Yeah.
So we had a proper dive in the inland lake there, and then Sunday afternoon we went to and got in a pool, didn't we?
Yeah, and had a dive, and also, really just to sort of practice some skills. So get the Scuba Honey, who's my daughter, who's 13, and literally just passed her open water, Crystal Seas Scuba in Norwich. So we got in the pool and just went through the dive master board list of skills. So making sure we can still clear mask, making sure we can do out of air scenario. Can we still swim without a mask if we have to?
Yeah.
Can we still take our buoyancy kit off in the water and put
then
it
put
all
it back
back on
on.
again?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
all
and
the
we
skills that you did as open water, we just went through them, making sure she can still put all her kit together and connect up regulators and then of course put it all away again, because it's just important.
That's right. And we all did it. We all did clearing our masks, swimming without a mask. So all the skills, we all participated, and it was really useful, wasn't it?
Yeah. So over the winter, I did say to her, I think we're going to try and do a dive up at Stony, probably over Christmas, I would have thought, and usually try and get in. And I'm not sure whether she'll come or not, but I think it's important over the winter period for any divers, really. If you're not one for the freezing temperatures, and you do get some nice days over the winter.
Yes,
it's nice to get in the pool and just go through some skills, because otherwise you could be a few months before you get back in the water, and
that's right.
Especially with new divers, it's easy to forget, these things. I also often refer to as putting your diving hat on. You've got to put that on to remember connecting up and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, and it's even, we did buddy checks, that we do those, whether it's pool, water, sea diving, they have to be done, and they're good rules to instill in honey, particularly as a new diver. That
I look at it's like putting your seatbelt on when you go for a drive.
Yeah,
you get used to it. So if you get used to doing your buddy checks, I think tech divers don't do them. They do something different. They check their own kit and everything and get geared up. And they go through their own preparations to getting ready for a dive. Where with most recreational people, especially when, it's a very common thing, and you should do it, is a buddy check. So definitely something trying to install to honey.
Yeah, and it's something that we said to honey. Obviously, if you are diving with somebody different, you do buddy checks together, and if they refuse to do them, well, you don't dive. It's you've got to make that call. If you're not happy, you call the dive.
Because otherwise, if you run out of air, how are you going to know where? How they might have a whole different setup to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be in, say, if you're a single tank diver because you're new and you're pairing up with someone who's got a twin set, you would hope before you get in, they run through with you what you need to do should you run out of air.
Well, and if they don't, I think you've either got to ask that question or you don't dive, because
anyway, it's a whole different subject. So that's that. So that's why we're doing that in the pool. I was due to have my rebreather try dive on
last Monday.
Yeah, but that got cancelled because unfortunately Scott broke down on the A14. Never a good place to break down. So we're going again Monday. We're trying again Monday. So it should be there tomorrow.
So we'll give people an update on that next week in next week's episode. And we also need to mention Not at 90 podcast sponsors. Yes. We have a promotional code that's available to everybody to use for any orders, and the code is Big Scuba 10.
Nice and easy code to remember.
It is, and it's available to anyone everywhere to use for any Knocked products throughout this month. So if you're looking to buy a diver in your life, a Prezi for Christmas, then that's the ideal opportunity to use
that. Privy?
Prezi.
So I don't think they sell privies.
A present, a gift.
Present, right. Clear.
So, but Knocked at 90 have a range of products for divers of all levels, from technical divers, recreational divers. They have dive computers, they have silicone covers for dive computers. So anything for everybody, range of budgets. Have a look at their website, which is www.knockedat90.com. And remember the code Big Scuba 10 to use at your checkout, or give them a ring if you've got any questions. They've got a team that can answer any queries or give you some ideas as well if you're looking for a little purchase.
Yeah, So do that, and don't forget that code nut90.com and use that code Big Scuba 10.
Yes, and if you are using it, let us know, tag us in, because we always like to know what you've used at Knocked at 90.
It's always good to know there's a listener out there.
Yes.
And talking about listeners out there,
Exactly.
we've got a new listener.
And a Patreon.
I think we're now in double figures. So we've got a new listener and a patron. We've got to say thank you very much to
Glenn Barnes. So he is one of our newest patrons, and he has been in contact. He's an advanced open water diver. I think he's got 70 odd dives under his belt, and he likes listening to the podcast, and he's considering doing his rescue course as well. So
awesome.
Yeah. So we're both rescue divers. So if you've got any questions, put them our way.
For anyone who is considering doing a rescue course, make sure before you do the course, make sure you speak to your instructor or your dive center and say, hey, thinking about doing this course. I like the idea of it. And most diving agencies do run a rescue course of some description. They'll be all virtually something similar.
Yeah, whether it's PADI,
with a first aid course or something built into it. Make sure you speak to them first and say, hey, thinking about doing that. Am I ready to do this course?
Yeah.
Because it's a really good course, but make sure, just get a little bit of feedback. Make sure you're ready for it.
Yes. And I did the course this summer and I loved it. It was really good, really good fun. So, but yeah, I think it's something you do when you're ready to do it. And
there's some life skills in there, which is always good, always come in handy.
Yes. Yeah. And it does, make you look at diving through a new.
Well, it's the switch over. Because it's the first time you learn a course where you're no longer just thinking about yourself as a diver, but learning to actually think, hey, look at that. That looks a bit unsafe. Or, it makes you thinking about your buddy and other people more than just yourself. So
yes. Yeah.
Where with the first skills, it's all about how you are in the water and how you dive.
Yes, exactly. So thank you to Glenn Barnes for joining our Patreon page. And if anybody else is
good to have you on board.
Yes, if anybody else is interested, just head over to our Patreon site. The link is in the show notes. And anybody is welcome. And it all helps to add to the running costs of the podcast. So we appreciate that. And it's great to have people enthusiastic about what we do and to have them on board.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you very much. And also, as we said earlier, if you are a diver and you've got a bit of a story to tell us, then tell us, let us know, make contact. We are fully booked now this side of the new year, this side of Christmas. We are going to take a very short break over the Christmas and New Year, and then we're cracking back on because we've got people lined up for the early part of January. So if you are thinking about coming on, we're probably looking at bookings for February now. So
yeah, that's right. And then just running up to Christmas, we'll be releasing an episode every Monday rather than the fortnightly schedule. So just to fit them in before the end of the year and then start next year with a fresh and a bang.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next year. Got some exciting stuff coming up, which is good. And looking forward to that. And we should also say, I can't remember if we did last one, but we need to say thank you very much to Ford. It's always sad seeing the when we have a vehicle off Ford for a few days to do some stuff with. It's always sad to see it go and have to wave at the truck. So bye truck. But soon be hello Raptor, hello.
So look out on our social media. We'll be posting a few reels and stories about the Wild Track Ranger that we had last week.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What adventures we got up to with it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So thanks to them.
So I think that's probably covered everything for this week. And
I think so.
We'll talk to Ted Harty.
Yeah. So look out for Ted and his daily posts, and it's really knows his stuff, and he also knows Kirk as well, and one of our other
Kirk Croc,
Kirk Croc, one of our previous guests as well from the free diving world. So
Yeah, and we have spoken to a number of free divers in the past as well. So we have over 160 episodes. So if you have a look at the catalogue, and yeah, there's a few free divers among there as well.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I think we're ready to pass over to Ted Harty.
Yeah, let's get him on.
Yeah. So thank you for downloading, and this is episode 166, and it's Ted Harty. Well, it's great to have you join us, Ted. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've been watching some of your LinkedIn daily posts, so that's how we came across you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your initials. We know you're a free diver, but you did start out with scuba.
Yeah, so I was, as soon as I took my first scuba class, I was obsessed. Like when I think about how I got where I was, I can definitely remember the pool session in my first scuba class. I can remember breathing underwater. I mean, the first thing you kneel down, you put the regulator in your mouth, and I'm like, I feel like a superhero. I'm like, I want more of this. This is amazing. So yeah, I was like hooked before I even started. So after I took my first scuba class, my father lived in the Florida Keys, and I was at the age where like you weren't always like super excited to go hang out with your dad. Like, it was like I was kind of trying to be my own person, but he lived in the Keys and there was a dive shop right next to him. So I started, hey dad, what are you doing next weekend? Can I come down and visit? And I started visiting him a lot. He was like, you were just here last week, and oh, it'd just be great to see you. So I started going on the Keys, visiting him a lot because there was a dive shop there. And it wasn't that long after becoming, a regular on that boat that the dive master said, you'd be a great instructor.
Wow.
Said, me? Really, me? Right. And so she was like, yeah, if you just go across the street, become a scuba instructor at Hall's Dive Center, we'd hire you. I'd even hire you. I'm like, really? So that was it. That's all it took, right? Beers and bikinis, paychecks in paradise. I was hooked. That was an easy mark. I went and got my scuba certification, instructor certification. I got hired, and that was it. And so I loved my scuba career. I worked at a very busy dive shop in the Keys, so I was very lucky, and I got to teach a ton. So that certainly helped me later on when I became a freediving instructor. But yeah, I loved being a scuba instructor in the Keys. It was awesome.
Yeah. So did you just scuba in the Florida Keys, or did you travel? Did you do sea diving in land sites?
No, it's funny. I mean, I was a busy dive instructor, obviously I had a ton of dives, but 99% of my scuba dives in my life have been in Marathon, Florida, right? So because when you're a busy dive instructor, it's not like I had time to go vacation and whatnot. I mean, so I remember, going on like a liveaboard dive trip and like not being diving in the Keys, and I was blown away. Actually, I can remember being on a liveaboard dive trip, and it was the most beautiful diving I'd ever seen, because all I'd ever seen is Marathon, Florida. And I looked at the dive master and I'm like, no. I know that look. That he got in the water and he was that bored like kick, and he kept like looking at his watch, like, when do I get it back? I'm like, how can you think that here? Like, this is amazing, right? That's the look I have when I'm on the Thunderbolt wreck that I've done 100 times. And I was like, I can't believe you think that here. But I guess it's if you work in the industry, like, you kind of just get used to your little spot. But no, so I will really say I do not have this really amazing dive experience out scuba diving outside of the world, because I was a working dive instructor and I didn't ever travel that much. But most all of it was in the Keys.
Yeah. So was that kind of a career change, or was that just kind of as a youngster you got into scuba and then you knew that was what you're going to do, your vocation?
Oh no, it was out of left field. Now, so I have a very long history of becoming massively obsessed with things, and sometimes I can control the things I'm obsessed about, and sometimes I can't. They just come across my radar, and I can't help it. But so scuba diving, it was just like one of those things I always wanted to do. And I remember sitting in that scuba class, and it was like I saw that chart, that PADI dive chart, right? And there's a little sad little thing where I was, and then I saw there was a gold section, and it was dive master. I'm like, dive master, what is that? Right? Rescue diver and instructor. And I was like, yes. I mean, I literally hadn't even finished my first open water class, and I was already plotting, like, I need to be way high up on that chart. Right.
Wow.
So, and then it was, I did the pool session, and that was, and so, yeah. So, I mean, I really quickly went from, in that class to climbing up that ladder as fast as I could.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. So from obviously having all the experience of scuba, what made you decide to try free diving? Was it just a new experience?
You know, it was really not kind of on purpose. What I remember is, you know, I mean, obviously I was a dive instructor. I knew what free diving was. I mean, I wasn't an idiot. I understood there were free divers and I got it, but I'd never really seen free diving. And I remember seeing free divers come on our boat for the first time, and they had camouflage wetsuits, right? You know, and they had the crazy fins, and like, you know, I'm like, okay, they're free divers. Like, I get it, you know, but I'm like, we're in like Sombrero Reef, we're like 20 foot away. I was like, okay, whatever, you guys go to free diving, that's cool, right? You know, I don't have to do any work, so it's easy for me, just push you off the boat, go do your thing. But I remember watching them, and I remember going, holy, they're down there for a long time, right? And then I started trying to get a watch. I started trying to time them, and I'm like, that was like over a minute. That was a minute and a half. And I was stunned. I couldn't, you know, I'm like, they must have like, I'm like, where's our spare air? Did they take my spare air down? Or like, you know, I'm like, maybe the tank that we take on the deep Rex is hanging underneath the boat, and I left it. I'm like, what is going on? And no, I just couldn't believe it. And so I remember the next day, I was like, hey, I told the captain, I said, hey, I want to, like, remember those free dive we had yesterday? I'm like, I want to try some free diving. Is that okay? He's like, look, as all the customers are all in, and, you know, that's, I don't have a problem with it. I'm like, okay. Right. So all the customers were taken care of. And so I remember a couple of things. I remember putting on the weight belt, and I remember I had no wetsuit on, and I put two, the biggest ones we had are 8-pounders, but 2 8-pounders on. So that's 16 pounds of lead. And my thought process was, I'm a scuba instructor. I've got really strong legs because I kick, you know, if I put more weight on, it won't be hard to get down. Right. And so that was my thought process. I put on a ton of weight, right? I plopped down, and I ended up at the sand at Sombrero Reef at 25 foot. Now I dove this 500 dives on this reef. I know this reef backwards and forwards. Like I know like certain fish have names. I know like certain fish live in certain areas. I know this thing very well, right? So I'm sitting in the sand. I'm kneeling in the sand because I love being on those big coral walls. That's what I like to do as a scuba diver. It is not like travel really far. It's just don't go far at all. Anyway, so I'm kneeling on the sand, and instantaneously I am blown away because this is very different than anything I know, because the sounds, I can hear the popping and the crackling, the sounds of the surge. Because I had no idea how loud scuba was, because that's all I knew was scuba. I didn't know that I didn't know that thing was loud. I just never heard it. And then I didn't have it. And I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I also remember on this dive site, we had these finger corals. So they're like, 10, 15 foot vertical walls everywhere. And I could hear the customers, the scuba divers, they're on the other side of this coral wall. So I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. I could hear there was a group of them coming around the corner. So before I even could see them, I knew that there were scuba divers over there. Right? And the other thing I remember is the blennies, right? You guys know scuba divers, those little blennies, and you sit really still, and after a while they'll poke their head out. If you go quiet, you got to tell the new people calm down, and the little blennies will pop. They're already 3/4 of the way out of the hole, because I was a free diver. So all of this happens in like a 10-second window, and I'm like stunned. I'm like, this is I'm like, free diving is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. This is so cool. And that what I just described over probably 5 minutes took 10 seconds. And then I remember
Oh no.
With all that weight.
urge to breathe. I look up at the surface, and I'm like, oh my God, that seems a really far way away. I fly to the surface at Mach 10, completely panicked, right? Oh my God. I'm like, freediving is the dumbest sport ever. Like, why wouldn't you just wear a tank and stay down for an hour? And like, that was that. I completely dismissed the sport from that one little scenario. I went from like, freediving is amazing to freediving is the dumbest thing ever. So that was it. I'm like, freediving is really stupid. And that was kind of what I thought about it. Now, as a working dive instructor, you can't just, there's always going to be an aspect of free diving, right? I mean, like, even I was never like, but if someone drops their weight belt and I'm in the shallow reef, like, do I really want to, hook on all the stuff just to pop down and get the weight belt or their mat? So like in the beginning, it was just like a little free diving like that. Our wreck that we used to to hook up to. The Thunderbolt had it didn't have a mooring ball on the surface. The mooring ball was like 15 foot underwater, so you'd have to like free dive down and clip on. And if the current was bad, it might be 25, whatever. But I thought I was like a macho free diver because I could we made a big deal out of the dive master's got to go up front and jump, Ted, jump, and I'd jump off with the rope and try to hook us up, whatever. But I had very minimal freediving ability, but just from doing that kind of over and over, I got a little bit of freediving ability. But yeah, that was kind of how it just kind of came about, was I was never just in the beginning, I want to be a freediver. I just had to do some of it because of my job.
Right. So then did you obviously decide to take a course?
Yeah. So I guess, okay, let's see. So I can remember my first, so that was my first free dive. I mean, I definitely remember that was my first real free dive. Then I can remember I started, because I've got an obsessive personality about things, and I started to be like, I'm going to become obsessed with free diving, but I kept getting blocked because so I remember this. I remember being on a day off, me and some of the captains and crew, and I would have crew dives where we could go diving without the customers around, which was super cool. And we went to something called Shrimp Boat Reef, and it was 50 foot. And basically me and the captain made a bet that, we're going to come up with sand. So I'm like, all right, so that now that the gauntlet's been thrown, I am going to free dive down to the sand because there's a bet involved. And so there's, that's it. Right. So I'm going down. I had never been past 20 or 30 feet before. And it was, I just remember pain. I remember being uncomfortable. I'm I wasn't smart enough to think that I was going to die, but I think that started to cross my mind. It was just awful. But I came up with the sand and I flew up to the surface. But there was, yay, I won the bet. I came up with sand, but I didn't like it. There was nothing fun about it. It was just this kind of painful feeling. And of course I would brag to anyone who would listen, about my 50-foot free dive, at the bar, right? Let me tell you, my friends, the seas was angry that day, but I was determined that I was going to go to the Shrimp Boat Reef, and I'd tell everybody, but I didn't like it. There was nothing kind of fun about it. But I kind of was after that. I remember hearing people about, they would free dive on the Thunderbolt, and the Thunderbolt's, the deck's at 100 foot. How can you free dive to, okay, I was like, maybe you could touch maybe they could touch the deck like I did on a 50, but I would hear about free divers, and I was like, but the only thing I could figure was that they must have immense tolerance to pain, some sort of trick, the monks can burn their hands and have, I'm like, is anytime I do anything with free diving, it's just so painful. And so that's kind of what I figured. I remember okay, I'm not an idiot. I can't hold my breath very long. So if I want to get better at freediving, I should just lay on the couch and practice holding my breath. I'm like, that seems obvious. And I would do that, and it was awful. It would hurt. My lungs would be, and I'm like, why can't I would just do it more and more, and it just hurt. It was painful. And I just kept thinking okay, freedivers, that's it. They just have pain. They can have immense tolerance. That's the only thing I can figure out. And then I heard about Kirk Kroc. Back then, he was the founder of Performance Freediving, and I heard about these freediving classes he did. And back then, that was it. There wasn't it was Kirk and then Martin from Freediving Instructors International. Those were basically, in the United States, there was the two people. If you wanted to learn to freedive, you found out whatever city those people were in and you flew to it, and that was it. There was no there was no freediving courses. And I remember looking at their website, and I remember guffawing at the little, the little blurb, and it said the average student does a 4 to 5 minute breath hold and 100-foot free dive. And I'm like, that is the biggest bunch of nonsense. I'm like, I don't doubt that a person somewhere did a 4 to 5 minute breath hold, and a person somewhere can free dive to 100 feet. I've heard of people that can, but there's no way that's what the student does. Right. And I was just oh, this is a bunch of bad false advertising. And there wasn't much information about freediving, but I remember searching on the forums, and I found out about people that, oh yeah, I took that class with Kirk, and I started reading people who said the average person does a 45 minute breath hold, and the average person does a 100-foot dive. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how can that be possible? And I'm like, all right, that's it. Right. So I signed up for the course. So for the folks that work in the dive industry, you'll think this part of the story is funny. So I worked at a very, 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 very busy dive shop. And so to leave for vacation was always a problem, right? Because the owner never wanted, especially because I was the head instructor. Like, if I wasn't there, there was turning away a lot of money from students. So it's always hard to like, so I knew that the deal was you ask for permission like 6 months in advance and you get it in writing.
Oh. Hello. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you already can, like, and then she's like, I got on the internet and this course costs $700. You pay $700 to learn how to snorkel. Like, what are you doing? She goes, look, I'm just going to teach you how to do it right now. And then she goes, look, all they're going to tell you to do is take a big breath in, kick your feet down, kick your feet up, and then take a breath. You can just give me the $700 if you want. So I'm like, I think it's a little more advanced than that. But so I went and I took the freediving course, and I finally got to go do it in Miami. And before I took that freediving course, now that I had paid the money for it, I really started trying to do try to do more breath holding stuff. And so this is a story I tell my students all the time, is I could have easily, if I hadn't taken that freediving course, without any shadow of a doubt, I would have killed myself from blackout before that course started. Because here's what I started doing. I asked the captain, I said, look, I don't get this freediving stuff. I can't hold my breath. Like, I don't understand how you people do it. And I said, I tried to hold my breath on the couch. It didn't work. He goes, oh. He goes, well, if you want to get better holding your breath underwater, you got to practice holding your breath underwater. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I'm holding my breath on the couch. No wonder I can't do it, right? So what I started doing is we would be at Sombrero or these shallow reefs, which is 25 foot deep. I would put a down line off the back of the boat with a weight belt, so just stick on the bottom. And I would pop down 25 foot underwater and just practice holding my breath underwater, looking at the stopwatch. And then I'd fly up to the surface. So I'm doing the underwater statics, insanely overweighted, with no one watching me, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Now, I'm also insanely competitive. So here's how this is how it's. So I go back to the dive shop on the board. Ted, 47 seconds. So the next dive master comes in. It's like, oh, that guy, I easily beat Ted. Like, Ted sucks. So he's down there. And then you're happy to write my name off the thing and put, John, right? 59 seconds. I come in the next day. Oh, I don't like John. Man, I can kill John. So we're doing this boom, 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 boom every day. All the instructors are doing underwater statics, overweighted with no one watching us, with competition, like.
And this is scuba instructors doing this.
Yeah, all scuba instructors. Also, we have no idea anything about freediving. And so I remember I had put the last time I wrote on that thing was 2 minutes and 13 seconds before I went up to my freediving course.
Wow.
So I took my freediving course, and I remember Kirk, and it's funny because I obviously, Kirk is the guy that I learned from, and I, so many things that I do, I learned from him. But one of the things he would do in the very beginning is ask, why are you here? And so almost everyone in that class said the same thing that all of my students do when I ask them that same question, because a lot of the students are spear fishermen. Back then, that was the only people taking freediving class. Now we got more people. But so anyway, so basically every person's like, dive deeper, stay longer, shoot bigger fish. Dive deeper, stay longer, shoot bigger fish. And he says, why are you here, Ted? And I said, I'm new to this freediving thing, but I've been in the Keys for a couple of years, and I keep hearing about these fatalities from these freedivers and spear fishermen. And the one thing that they always say is they don't understand because the person was really good. And I'm like, so the reason I'm here is I don't want to die. And he was like, that is a good answer. And so that was like the basis of me and Kirk's friendship right at the beginning. And then of course, everyone else was, dive deeper, shoot bigger fish, and also, not die like he said. But so I took the class, first day of class, I did a 4-minute breath hold. First day. And it was easy. It was easy. I was doing 2:13 was my best ever. And I felt like I was going to die. And looking back, I can assure you I was seconds away from having a blackout. And then I did 4 minutes the first day. I did 5 minutes the second day. That was hard. But I'm like, I couldn't believe it.
Nice.
And so that's the one thing that, I always say when I'm interacting, when people are interested in freediving, right? Especially scuba divers, right? I mean, scuba divers are the best group to be freedivers because you have all the boxes ticked off. You like being in the water. right? You know how to deal with seasickness. You're not afraid if there's a fish in the water. You're not afraid of a shark. Like you have all the things. The only thing that you don't want to do is you don't know how to hold your breath, right? Like it's hard to take someone who doesn't have all those things and turn them into a free diver. But if you're comfortable in the water, you know, all that stuff is really easy to become a free diver. So obviously that story should help people understand, but here's I think the best way that I can explain it. I was at DEMA years ago, and there was a pool. They have the pool. The scuba divers can try out all the gear, and so PFI rented it out for a breath hold demonstration, and they put me in charge of it. And so we had 8 people show up, and these were 8 scuba divers, no free diving experience whatsoever. So I said, all right, here we go. First thing we're gonna do a breath hold contest. So 3, 2, 1, who can hold the breath the longest? Boom, and I put them on the spot, and I made them hold their breath. The longest out of the 8 people was 47 seconds, right? And I remember, he's red-faced and wheezing like, oh my God, that was awful. I would do that again. You free divers are crazy, right? So I spent 15 minutes with these people. You have to understand, my entry-level course has like 7 hours of classroom. This is 15 minutes with these people. And I got 6 of the 8 people to do a 3-minute breath hold with 15 minutes of training, right? And so what I always want people to understand is we all, especially as scuba diver, because you're already water people, you have the ability to hold your breath a long time, but it's all technique. You would never figure it out. You would never just like repeatedly hold your breath and over again and figure out how to do that, right? It's all technique. So I always say the biggest secret to holding your breath a long time is not what you do when you hold your breath, it's what you do before the breath hold started, right? It's how you prepare. There's this thing called the mammalian dive reflex, which is like there's so much really cool physiology in freediving. So the mammalian dive reflex really simply is dolphins, seals, and whales are mammals. Human beings are mammals. Dolphin, seals, and whales are full-time residents of the water. We as human beings are part-time residents of the water, some more than other. And genetically encoded in these mammals, dolphins, seals, and whales, are what's called this diving reflex. And it's one of the things that allow these mammals to turn into, awesome free divers. So genetically encoded in every human being on this planet is the mammalian dive reflex. Whether you want it or not, it is in our DNA because we are mammals. And so what I know how to do, and other free diving instructors, the way I always explain it is I know how to reach in your body, adjust the knobs, flip the switches, turn on the dials to turn on your mammalian dive reflex, which is why anyone has this ability to hold their, and that's why, freediving classes, it's not like, if you took my freediving class and you heard the student did a 4 to 5 minute breath hold, 100-foot dive, people would say, Ted Harty's freediving class is the best freediving. No, any freediving instructor has a bazillion stories like this. I'm sure you haven't. It can't be the first time you've heard someone took a freediving class and did this phenomenal performance. It's because it's all in us. It's just it's a technique issue, and it's a lot easier than people would think. So once people, take a freediving class or understand that's possible, then it just opens up the whole thing of freediving. And I think there's I think a lot of people, they want to fight like freediving better than scuba. It's just like, I just think of it as just another tool to access the water. If you want to be on a wreck in 100-foot of water, look, my deepest free dive is 279 feet. When I'm on a 100-foot wreck, I like to put a tank on it because I can stay down there, right? But if think about how awesome it would be to go out on your personal boat or someone else's boat and just have mask fit and snorkel and play around in 40 foot of water, not have to go to the dive shop, not have to get your tanks filled. So it's just another tool to add to your disposal. And a whole other thing I won't go into, but it makes you a better scuba diver, tech diver, whatever. It's a great way to become a better scuba diver as well.
We have heard that from people saying that learning to free dive has changed and made them a better scuba diver, whether it's air consumption or Yeah, I guess there's no reason I shouldn't expand on that. This is a perfect audience. So there's a couple things. First off, I think the obvious one is going to be air consumption. Right? So as a working dive professional in the Keys, I was literally diving every single day for 3 years. Diving 5-6 days a week. You dive a lot, right? So I don't care if you do that, you're going to get good air consumption, right? This is the way it works. And then I took the freediving class, and I got into freediving, and there was no question that I saw a jump. I saw a massive improvement in my air consumption. And that's already from someone who's diving as much as I was. Like you don't expect, when you're diving that much, you don't expect to have any improvement, right? You expect all your improvement to come at the beginning, right? When you're new.
And so learning those breathing techniques that we use for free diving with some minor adjustments absolutely helped help my air consumption as a scuba diver. I actually wrote an article recently for a tech diving to, again, like, there are people that should be getting us into free diving, because there's people that are obsessed about their, their depth air consumption, their surface air consumption as tech divers, right? So I was explaining how there's, you should be looking into that. So there's the breathing aspect of it. So that's one thing. Another thing that free divers are obsessed about is efficiency. We have one breath, and we're going to do whatever we're going to do with it. So my form in the water, my streamlining. I mean, scuba divers talk about streamlining, like, like you get people got stuff dangling everywhere. You want to, but I mean, like, they don't really. I mean, like, if you're kicking along the wreck, I mean, yes, streamlining is important to a point, but not really, because you just take another breath and keep kicking.
Yeah.
But as a free diver, I mean, if I can make, I mean, like, not everyone will be able to see the video, but, like, if I'm going down like this, which the average free diver, if they're going down, they're gonna have their hand over the head and they have their elbow out like this, and then we pitch in their nose to equalize their ears. This drag almost doubles the amount of surface area I'm pushing through the water as opposed to this. Right? I literally just cut my surface area in half, right? Which means, so I'm really focused on streamlining because I'm lazy. I don't want to do more work. If I have bad form, that means got to train hard. I don't want to train. It's hard to train. I'd rather just have good technique and good form. Yeah. So from a streamlining perspective, it makes a huge difference. But again, scuba divers don't, I mean, of course they think about it to some extent, but not as much. And now when I scuba dive, I'm like, actually, like, really, I'm like a streamlined scuba diver, which really streamlined. And things like kicking efficiency, like, again, I'm sure, if you're an active scuba diver, there's a lot of bad people, kicks and all these crazy things out there. But again, it's just, as a free diver, you can't do that. Or, okay, but that's not, you can't. People still do, but it's just in your interest to have good kicks, because it's totally limiting what you can do. There's plenty of scuba divers that have been scuba diving for many years that have terrible kicks, and it doesn't matter. It's not like they can't go see the wreck. They just keep breathing and just, they use a lot more air than they need to be. Yeah. So it's really helpful with that. It's also, it puts depth in a different perspective. So again, remember I said 99% of my divings was in Marathon, Florida. We had one deep wreck dive. So the majority of my deep wreck diving was on this one particular wreck. And it was, the sand's at 120 foot, the deck's at 100 feet. And so when we would take the customers down there, our dive ship, actually, I was always in the water with the customers. I was counting them down and counting them up to make sure we didn't leave anyone. And I would have a spare, a tank with me in case someone had a problem down there, I could help them. But, that 100, I wasn't scared to do that dive because I did it all the time for my job, but 100, that was like deep. That is deep. I'm like, this is a deep scuba dive. When I found out that I could free dive to 100 feet, that dive was no longer deep. And I'm not saying I was scared to do it. It just changed my perspective on it. It just made me realize, hey, if something goes wrong here, like I can go up and down here without even a tank. So it makes you, it changes your perspective of depth. It helps your confidence, I think, a lot. So it made me a lot. I mean, again, it's not to say I was scared when I was down there before, but I don't know how to explain it. It just made me, it just made me better able to handle those type of situations, because I was not in any part of me think like, oh my God, I'm really deep. I'm not. I free dive down here all the time. And I've got a tank on, so if something goes wrong, like I'm really not that bad of a situation.
Yeah, is it like a calming effect? Because I think somebody has said that to us. It's you feel more calm or it makes you calmer as a scuba diver when you've done free diving.
Yeah, so part of free diving, if you remember, one of the things I said was the biggest secret to holding your breath is not what you do during the breath, it's what you do beforehand. So we do a lot of things to calm us down mentally, mentally and that physically thing I talked about, the mammalian dive reflex. But yeah, so when I scuba dive, which is not very often anymore, but I come at it, it's not even I plan to, it's just that when I get in the water scuba diving, I am in a so much better space than I used to be when I was a professional scuba diver, because the freediving stuff's happening kind of behind the scenes now. I'm making myself calm, right? I'm breathing a certain way. And when I get into the water, it's just even better than what I used to do. So it's funny. My highest scuba rating was a PADI staff instructor. I think staff instructor.
Yeah.
I took a refresher course as a PADI staff instructor, and that was really funny. I hadn't been diving in like 9 years. And so I'm like, as I showed up, the folks were trying to get me to, Kathy, my girlfriend, she wanted to go scuba diving. We hadn't been diving in a while, and she wanted to. And I was kind of like, I don't really want to. I'm going to read or whatever. And so the guys behind the counter, oh, you afraid of scuba diving? I'm like, no, I'm not afraid. I just don't want to do it. And they're like, oh, come on, man, you should do it. You should do it. Don't leave her all alone. And they started razzing me. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, look, I can scuba dive. I used to be an instructor. And they're, you used to be an instructor. I'm like, yeah, I used to be an instructor. I just haven't dove in 9 years. So I probably should take a refresher course. And they didn't believe me, and so I got mad. So they went and got my PADI instructor or whatever it was, that's, gave them my staff instructor card. And so they sent me to the pool the next day. They didn't tell the guy that was training me that I was a staff instructor, right? It was me and my girlfriend. She's a scuba instructor. I'm a staff, or used to be a staff instructor. And I just didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to make the guy feel awkward. So I was just like, I'm just going to be a good little student. And he was mortified. He didn't know that he was like new, and he had his cards and was flipping through his cards and was all scared and nervous, and it was really funny. But he takes us through the refresher course, and I was happy to hear that he's okay. I said, we got one last thing to do, Ted and Kathy, and people get nervous about this, but there's no reason to get nervous. So I don't want you to get nervous, okay? Because I know you can do this, but we're gonna kneel down underwater, and you're gonna have to take your mask all the way off. And you have to put it back on. And then basically all I have to do is get you to clear it, right? If you can just clear that mask out, like, it would be the last thing, and then we'll get to go scuba diving. So we did the mask clear, and I was so happy to hear that he said, that is the best mask clear I have ever seen. So I was like, all right, I still can clear my mask good. So he takes us out on the refresher dive, and he proceeds to, he shoots the lift bag up because there's boat traffic, and he proceeds to get tangled in the lift bag, shoots himself up to the surface, right? And he comes back down, and he finally gets himself sorted, and he comes up to me, and he asks me if I'm okay. I'm like, me? I'm like, I can consider myself refreshed. I'm like, all right, I'm all good, bye. But that was my refresher course.
Wow.
That was, very entertaining. So obviously you got the love of free diving. So then did you decide, I want to be a free diving instructor? Just flip it on its head from scuba diving instructor to...
Yeah, so I took the freediving course, and when I came back from that freediving course, I was still working in the dive shop, but then I was full on obsessed about freediving. Scuba diving was my job, so I would go into work and do my job, and I'd talk about freediving to anyone who would listen on the boat or after work. I'd be talking about freediving. And then my day off, I was freediving. I was not scuba diving. I was either going spearfishing, I was going training, and I was like full on, borderline, obsessed with freediving. But there was no next thing. There was no classes there. I mean, I took the class, there was no other classes. And there was not a lot of, I was trying to find some on the internet, but it was about 9 months later, Kirk ran a instructor. It was the first ever PFI instructor program. So I'm like, yes. So I went out to Hawaii. It was a 10-day program, and there was like 7 or 8 of us. 2 of us passed. So not only did I pass, he gave me a job offer on the spot and said, hey, we wanted you to come work for us. And we're basically going to fly around all these cities every week, and we'll fly you, hotel you. I'm just like, yes. Like, I want to do that. Right. So for about a year and a half, every weekend I would go on what I call the PFI Roadshow, where I'd, Kirkwood, we do a class in Key West, and do a class in Miami, then we do a class in Fort Lauderdale, then we go to a class in North Carolina, then we go to Kona, and then we do all the cities in Hawaii, we do California. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And I was so lucky to work directly under Kirk. So for those who don't know, Kirk is the founder of Performance Freediving. He has an incredible freediving resume, his technical scuba diving. He's been a pioneer in every way in the sport for a long time. And so I was so lucky to be mentored by him during that time period. And I might have chafed at the way that it worked at the time, because the way it would work is like he would, as a new instructor, he would let me teach like one little piece of the, I could teach like a couple slides, and he'd be there grading me, and I'd have to get a perfect score before he'd let me teach the next section. So, over time, he was like, okay, I'm comfortable with you doing the entire classroom presentation, which back then was like 14 hours it was like 2 days of PowerPoint presentations. And then he was like, all right, I'm comfortable you doing all the pool stuff. And so I remember there was a while when my final test where he wouldn't show up for the classroom or the pool session. He would fly in like 2 days late, and we'd go out to the ocean, and he's like, all right, let's see how the students do. If they did good, they do good, you did a good job. If they do bad, it's on you. I need to get more involved again, though. So it was like super stressful. But yeah, so that's how it worked. I did that for probably 2 years working for them, and then eventually at some point I decided to start immersion freediving, where I was going to run PFI courses on my own. And the big thing I wanted to do was I wanted to do it based in Portland. So instead of traveling all over the place, if I could just sit in one place, make the students come to me, it makes my life a lot easier. Yeah. And so that was kind of the big thing back then, was would that work? And it did not work. It did not work for a while, because back then it was like, okay, I'm gonna get a course from Kirk, the founder of Performance Freediving, and he was trained 13 people to bazillion world records and like this icon of the sport. Or there was Martin Stepanek, right, who's a 20-time world record holder and runs, the FI. So those are like the two dueling agencies and the head of those agencies. Or I can get a course from Ted Harty, the scuba instructor I've never heard of. So yeah, I always say, like, I wouldn't take a course from me either. So it was definitely not easy. in the beginning. And also freediving courses weren't popular then. Like, people didn't understand what they were. So it was
are you finding it's more popular now? And
oh my God, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
so I used to talk about how my classes, I would have no one sign up. I mean, like zero. Like, I'd have it all scheduled and no one would sign up for the classes. I remember like my girlfriend Kathy being like, oh, let's go see this concert. I'm like, oh, no, I can't go to that concert. I have a class scheduled. Like, I got a free dive. I was trying to convince her. I was a big business person. I have a free diving business. And I'm like, no, I can't go that weekend. I have a concert booked. And then of course, like, the weekend would show up and I'm like, well, if you still have those tickets, I can go, because no one signed up for my class. It was very difficult to
disheartening.
To get that going in the beginning. And it took forever. When I sold out it was probably 2 years before I ever sold out a course. And now I hear all these instructors and they put something on the website and 2 months later their course sells out. I'm just like, you have no idea. Because now people know what freediving courses are. I mean, every freediving agency on the planet, every scuba agency on the planet now teaches freediving.
Yeah.
I mean, back then in 2000, when I was teaching freediving in 2009, there were like 7 freediving instructors in the United States. People did not know what freediving classes were.
Amazing.
Whereas now, like, all the scuba agencies are behind freediving, because there was only so long they were going to let the little guys like PFI and FI get all the business. Right? I mean, it was the way I always say it is they all were like, oh, you freediving people are a bunch of you're gonna kill people, you're a bunch of cowboys. And then they just kept seeing it grow and grow and grow. And then SSI was the first agency to say, we're going to do freediving. So they announced that they were teaching freediving. And I always say all the other agencies said, okay, SSI is going to kill someone. So let's watch and see what happens with SSI. And after like a year, they didn't kill anyone. Then Patty announced freediving, and then now he announced freediving, and then TDI announced freediving. Now everyone teaches freediving. And it's cool because it's it's not the fad that they've been telling me for 15 years. It's a fad. It's like it's gonna go. No, it's not a fad. It's not going away, right? The freediving market has just been in such an amazing growth the whole time I've been involved in it, right? I mean, it's such a great demographic. It's a growing demographic. It's a young demographic. It's a healthy demographic, but it's open to everyone. And I'm not as actively involved in the scuba diving anymore, but it seemed to me all the time that I've been involved in the scuba industry and going to DEMA, it's like the argument is it flat, or is it, oh my God, is it slightly going down, or is it slightly going up? And then it seems like people argue over which one of those three it is. And like, freediving is right. And there's no question about it. Freediving is taking off.
Yeah.
So it's great now that all the scuba agencies are getting behind it. And
you think the energy is behind why it is taken off at the rate it is?
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, what do you think is behind that?
So a couple of things. So first off, and it reminds me of, so let's put it this way. I remember years ago, because I still keep in touch with the folks in the Keys that have all the dive shops. And I remember, they know me, I left that and I came to do all this freediving stuff. So they always like to, chit chat with me. He's like, he's the scuba instructor that got into freediving. And he said, Ted, he's like, for the longest time, like, the kids would come in, I try to, convince them to take a scuba course. And now like the kids come in and I say something about a scuba course and they're like, scuba? No, my dad's scubas. Like, I want to free dive. Right. So I always think of it, it's like the snowboarding, skiing thing. Right? Like snowboarding was like the cool thing. And I think another thing that's really powerful about it is video.
Yeah.
There's not, I don't care if you're a couch potato, you don't know anything about scuba diving or free diving, and you don't do anything outdoorsy. You watch a video of a free diver and you're going to go, all right, that's cool. That looks really cool. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. That's so crazy. And you show that some video of a scuba diver and you don't get that same, because it's bulky and his machine and the bubbles and like
the noise. Yeah.
Yeah. You just look at those two videos, same wreck, same spot. The average person is going to go, look at that guy. Oh my God, look at her. She was holding her breath and she went down and she went around. And like, it's just, you immediately, people are like, wow. So, I think the fact that it's so easy to see video of what we're doing underwater now. When I started as a scuba instructor, there wasn't all this amazing footage of what we're doing underwater now. There wasn't even GoPros when I was doing it. It was hand. Anyway, so I think it's the video element of it is, I think it's the cool thing. I think you get a little bit of the scuba diving. Yeah, my dad does that, but I'm a free diver. Certainly in this, at least where I am in the States, a lot of freediving is driven by the spearfishing side of things. No, it's interesting. When I started teaching freediving, I would say 90% of my customers were spearfishers, or 95% of my customers were spearfishermen. But as I teach, that percentage is going less and less and less. It's still the majority, but you'll get people that, they're scuba divers and they want to try freediving, or they want to do it because of the meditative aspects or the yoga aspects or the calming and relaxing. I have people that take freediving classes because they have, anxiety issues. And so I see more and more people coming in for more reasons other than spearfishing. So that's kind of neat to see, is that it's just growing like crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose, so go on.
No, go on.
I was just thinking about the, some of the exposure suits that a lot of the free divers, and especially like what we see on YouTube, they wear like, I suppose, couple mil suits, and the water's warm, it's usually really clear.
Yeah.
And it just looks really nice, where when you compare to, say, most scuba divers, especially in the UK,
yeah, they're diving cold, hard, big, bulky.
Just creating video, in those conditions, just a lot more tricky. You need lights and you need camera and you just need all this gear. Then you need all the weight to get you down because you've got a dry suit, and you can see why it appeals.
Oh yeah, so it's funny when I do scuba dive now. I still enjoy scuba diving, but I despise getting geared up and walking off the boat. Like I feel like I just feel like, whereas the free diver, I just, it's no different than walking around in the boat when you don't have so like that part really rubs me the wrong way. Just now that I know free diving, is that like, like
simple, simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't need to lug all that gear to a dive site. You just take your suit, and I guess that's it. And a few weights.
Mass fin and snorkel. It's really cool. Your freediving bag versus my scuba bag, right? Yeah. So it's such a neat sport. It's people really get into the meditative side of it, the spiritual side of it, which is really interesting because there's not. That kind of stuff is there when scuba, but it's not as forefront. With scuba diving, it's like, I want to see the wreck, or I'm looking for this fish, or I want to get the camera. But I think scuba divers all know that side of that part of scuba diving. It's just somehow, it's just not as much in the forefront as free diving. I remember as a scuba instructor, when I'd be having working as a scuba instructor is an awesome job, but if you've ever done it, you also know you want to pull your hair out because of the customers sometimes. And I can remember on just really bad days, I just look at the captain and I'd put my hand up with 5. And I said, Captain, I need 5 minutes to go down to the bottom, lay on my back, and scream really loud for about 30 seconds, and then I just need to sit there for like 4 minutes and breathe. Otherwise, I'm gonna do something that I shouldn't do on this boat. And he's like, "Yep, go 5." Right now, just because I would be so stressed about what was going on. But I can remember like sitting in the sand and just looking up and just breathing and thinking that this is the most relaxing feeling in the world. Right? Just being underwater and just relaxing. So I mean, that part of it certainly is a part of scuba diving, but free diving, I think it just takes it on a whole nother level for sure.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Do you think the ages entering free diving are a younger set than the people that scuba dive, or?
Yeah, I mean, I see more and more younger folks doing it as well. It's great. So the younger folks, I love working with kids because so a huge thing in free diving is the safety aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So people always ask me, right? Because I mean, certainly anytime you ever seen free diving whether it's a movie or the news, if you ever see free diving on the news or in a movie, it's typically something to do with world record elite free divers. It's the most dangerous sport and he could die at any moment. And of course, there's a video of someone having a blackout and their lips are blue and there's all this craziness. And you're just like, oh my God, like free diving is insane. And so like, that movie came out recently, the Netflix movie, the Deepest Breath. So that was a big free diving movie that came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so I had people messaging me saying, Ted, I had signed up for a freediving class, but after watching that movie, I'm canceling. Like it's crazy. I don't want to freedive because it's so crazy. And I always hate that when it's ever freediving is the average person that's not a freediver sees it is typically in these elite world record competitions. And so the way I explain that movie, The Deepest Breath, it talks about it as a fatality from a well-known freediving safety, and you see what it's like at the elite freediving competitions, the vertical blue and the world championships and all this stuff. And yeah, you see people blacking out and all these things happening because those people are trying to push the limits of what the human body can do.
Yeah.
Right. That is such a small, so that's like less than 1% of 1% of what actually freediving is. So the way I explained it is, if you watch that movie and that makes you not want to freedive, that would be like watching a movie where someone dies hiking Mount Everest and you people that go hiking in the woods are insane, right? Like that's not what freediving is, right? Like here's compared to scuba. Do people scuba dive to 800 feet? Yeah. Do they die a lot doing that? Yeah. Right. But when people think of scuba diving, they don't think of 800-foot crazy technical scuba divers. They think of like pitting around at the reef at 30 or 40 feet. And that's the same thing freediving is. But for whatever reason, when the media picks up on it, it's only that
bad stuff.
They like the drama, don't they?
Right. I mean, if everyone always talked about scuba was the technical divers that dive because they were pushing the limits of what technical diving can do, like you would think, well, you people that go on the reef are crazy. Anyway, so I got a little sidetracked there. So the thing about, you originally asked about kids, and I'll get back to that. But people are always asking me, is freediving safe? And I always say the same thing. The way most people do it, no. The way most people freedive, no, it's not safe. And here's why. Because 90% of the people that freedive have never taken a freediving class, right? You are obviously all well-versed in the scuba world. I mean, what is every scuba diver on the planet forced to do? Take a scuba course with a licensed instructor, and there's a classroom session. You have to actually pass a test, and there's pool training. And I mean, in the ocean, basically what I do as a scuba instructor is I throw you into the ocean and I demand, prove to me that you can handle anything that can go wrong. And only if I believe that you can handle all that, and prove to me that something happens to me that you can fix it. And if I don't believe you can do all those things, you don't get to go scuba diving. That's the way a scuba class works. Yeah. Now let's think about freedivers. You walk into the dive shop because you saw some cool freediving video and you're like, ooh, give me those fins. No, the big ones, the big one, big ones. And I want no, not that one. I want the camo one. Give me the camo wetsuit. Give me the little teeny tiny mask, right? Oh, you got a camo snorkel? Give me the camo snorkel. And I want a spear gun. No, I want the big one with like 4 bands on it. Give me the big, right? You swipe your credit card for $1,500 and it's up to you to figure out how to not kill yourself. So like when you look at it that way, it's not that surprising we have an issue. There's no gatekeeper for freediving. you can, if you have a pool, you can see how long you hold your breath. If you have a boat, you can see if you can free dive down to that wreck at the bottom. So I always just say it's not that it's the way most people do free diving is dangerous, because most people don't have any idea what they're doing. They haven't. I mean, imagine if scuba, you could walk into the dive shop, buy a tank, BC, and regulator, and they said, here's some YouTube videos. Like, that's what we have with free diving. Well, I didn't know I couldn't hold my breath and fly to the surface. I didn't know that I couldn't take like 10 tanks down and just stay down for 7 hours. Like you mean all the things you wouldn't know. So freediving is an extremely safe sport when done correctly. I wouldn't be able to get insurance to teach it if it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
that's really true when you put it like that.
Yeah, but that's unfortunately the issue that we have. And so yeah, that part is a problem.
Today's episode is sponsored by Narked at 90, so let's find out a bit more about them. Narked at 90, their tagline has been beyond technical, which describes them pretty well. John Routley and Brent Hudson launched the company over 20 years ago. They are both technical divers who have logged thousands of mixed gas dives between them over a 30-year period. Using their engineering know-how and diving expertise, have developed bespoke, personal, commercial and military diving equipment and products of a universally recognised, unparalleled calibre.
Their ability to be adaptive and versatile with their developments led them to support the NHS during COVID. Using their superior knowledge of breathing and oxygen monitoring systems to help develop emergency ventilators. They also design and supply the sneaky stuff used by defence-based development groups throughout the Western world, although they can't tell us much about that. If you're thinking of moving across to tech diving or completely new to diving, Narked at 90 can advise and guide on the best equipment and setup for your personal or commercial requirements. Narked at 90 have unparalleled experience of shearwater dive computers and are the longest serving and sole and UK European service centre for those. They are happy to offer technical support, servicing, repairs and upgrades to all shearwater computers, past and present. Narked at 90 stock shearwater computers, but are also stockists and technical support centre for many other manufacturers, including Divesoft, JJCCR, Hollis, Revo and Kiss Rebreathers.
Based centrally in the UK, Narked at 90 also offer full rebreather head servicing for selected manufacturers.
Bespoke cable assemblies.
Advice on specific fitting requirements.
Suggestions and guidance for home builds.
Computer laser cutting and engraving.
Pressure testing to simulate 400-metre dives.
So, Narked at 90, a reputation built on supporting both manufacturers and divers worldwide.
Go to narkedat90.com and make sure you are following their social media to keep up to date with their latest news and offers.
Narked at 90, large enough to cope, small enough to care.
Now, originally what made me go on that tangent is you said about kids. And the reason I love teaching kids is when I teach people a class and I teach them all the safety, everyone always says, that makes so much sense. Like why would you do it any other way than the way that you're describing and it's safe? And when you teach a kid who knows no other way, it's very easy to get them to buy in. They're just like, well, that makes perfect sense. Anyone that does it the other way is crazy. Now, you take someone that's been spearfishing for 40 years, 30 years, way longer than I've ever been free diving. I try to say everything they're doing is crazy and is unsafe and like you need to do it my way. That's harder to get them to switch. Right. But when you start off the right way, it's easy. It's so easy to get the ball. So I love, working with the kids because it's very easy to get them to do things the safe way because they don't know any better. And my way makes a lot of sense. It's just hard when you start trying to convince someone who's been doing it for 30 years to do it a different way.
Yeah. Do you think it'll ever get regulated like diving? So you have to have a certification to.
I don't know. One, how would you?
Yeah.
The only way scuba works that way is we control the tank.
Yeah.
That's really the only way that works. You want to come on our boat? You want to get your tank filled? Prove that you have a course. You want to come on my boat? Prove that you have a course. Right. But with freediving, I mean, you could stop people from going on a commercial boat and you couldn't free dive unless you showed them a card, but you can't stop people from going off the beach, I don't think, even if you did, like, what would that mean? Like, you can't stop people from holding their breath. So I don't think it will ever be regulated in that way, like scuba diving.
No.
Yeah, and so that just it's like, you know, as the sport is growing, which it is, and I love all the things that are happening, the fatalities are growing along with it, because, you know, more and more people are getting excited about it. And then, like, you know, you got all the nonsense on YouTube, and, you know, yeah, you can get on YouTube and find out all sorts of stuff about how to get good at freediving, and they don't tell you anything about how to be safe.
Yeah,
right? So,
very true. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm sure that people listening to this will be like enthusiastic to maybe give it a go. It's just, yeah.
So I would say so my, you know, my mission is to do more to raise awareness about shallow water blackout than any other person on the planet. And the way that I plan to do that, or am starting to do that, is so I never, again, all this stuff about safety is, you know, I never liked the idea that if you wanted to learn to be safe, that the only, you know, the way to do that is through a freediving course. Is what if you can't afford a course, or what if there's no course? I mean, what if you live in Indiana, there's no freediving instructor within like 800 miles of you? And so years ago, at the Blue Wild, I won an award for promoting safety to the Blue Wild is like the biggest freediving spearfishing conference in the U.S. And they got on stage, they gave me an award for promoting safety. They gave me a big $2,000 check, and within 2 weeks, I used that check to buy freedivingsafety.com, pay the web guy, and I hired 2 professional video guys to come to my house and create the free course at freedivingsafety.com, which is basically, if you came and took a course from me, every single thing I would teach you about safety, how to, you know, all the rules, how to tell if you're overweighted, what to do, what's a loss of motor, how to save someone from a blackout, all that stuff is laid out in that course. And so that is if you're interested in freediving, you know, that's a great starting point, because you want to do it in a safe way. I remember this was 15 years ago, but we had a situation where someone signed up for a class. They were going to come take our class, and we were going to teach them to be safe, and they died spearfishing before they could show up for class. Right? I mean, because just because you sign up for a class doesn't mean you instantaneously become safe. Most people that sign up for freediving courses are out there doing, like, between when they sign up and when they show up, are doing a lot of unsafe things. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is, you know, get that out there, to provide for free, right? Because again, like, you know, maybe you don't know how committed you are to freediving, and you want to spend the money for a course, but the problem is you're out there doing it, right? And you don't realize, well, what you could be doing it could be dangerous.
Yeah. So to access this free course, is it an app, or is it online?
Freedivingsafety.com.
Right. Okay. That's good for any free divers out there around the world that are listening to it.
Yeah, and for the scuba divers that, you know, are interested in it, you know, I also say it's great for. I would recommend it sometimes, because when parents they want to send their kid to me to take a freediving course, and I'm like, you know, they're going, you know, I want to send, you know, little Johnny to take the course, as I've heard you're good and all that stuff, and I want Johnny to be safe. I'm like, okay, so let me explain. I'm not trying to talk you out of sending Johnny to save me, but let me explain what's happening. You send Johnny to me, what's going to happen is I'm going to teach him how to be safe. And so what that means is, if something happens to someone that Johnny is diving with, Johnny will be able to fix that. But that doesn't mean that person will be able to help Johnny. So basically, you're paying me to make Johnny's friends be safe.
Yeah.
You want Johnny to be safe. So if you want Johnny to be safe, you need to get Johnny's friend to come to the class, and so that they both learn how to do it. And if you don't have a friend like that, then you need to come to, you know, if you're diving on the boat, like, what's going, and so like, oh yeah, we take him, you know, well, fine. If you guys go is a family spearfishing, then one of you else needs to take the class. Even if you don't plan on being a free diver, at least so you can be on the surface and know what to do. And I would sometimes have situations where I would say, okay, you at least need to go through freedivingsafety.com so that you know what safe freediving looks like. So if that kid comes back and says, oh no, I can do this and that, you can go, oh, no. That is not what Ted said. Ted did not say you could do that, because sometimes if you're a parent, you're trying to supervise these kids and you don't know what they're doing. How would you know if they said, you know, oh, this is safe? Because you don't know. So sometimes it's a situation of, I would have, you know, I'd make the parents go through just so they could, you know, if they were supervising the group, they knew what the real rules were.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way of getting more people involved as well. If you, sort of saying everybody needs to help each other. And
But they've got to be safe first, haven't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, in scuba diving, it's hard to relate to this, but every scuba diver knows what to do if their buddy runs out of air. Now
Yes.
they might not practice that to the level that they should and all that sort of stuff, but they know, they understand what to do. Most people that free dive, they don't know what a blackout looks like. They don't know what they're supposed to do if it happens, because why would they know that? No one's ever explained that to them.
Yeah, and I guess free diving is a bit different because you can free dive alone. You can spearfish alone. You don't have to have a buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's how a lot of people do it. I mean, unfortunately, we lose a lot of people that way. And so I would say the biggest objection I get to safety is they say things like, so I always say I give these presentations to the spearfishing club, or I'm up at the Blue Wild doing a presentation on safety because I'm always talking about safety. And they'll say things like, all right, Ted, I appreciate that presentation. That was great. And my kids, absolutely, I'm going to make them do all that stuff that you said. But I don't push myself. I'm in tune with my body. I know my limits. In fact, I've never had a problem before, so I know that I'm being safe. Now, so here's the thing. When I first started teaching freediving, I would dismiss that argument, but it took me a long time to realize you have to listen. That is a very strong argument. If you're saying, Ted, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't push myself. I'm not crazy. I've never had a problem. So that proves I'm being safe. And then I'm going, you're not being safe. They're making a pretty good argument. And so you really have to address that. And so it took me a long time to realize I can't just dismiss what they're saying. So what I would say is, okay, if you've never had a problem, that's awesome. But that doesn't mean you're being safe. Yeah. It just means you've never had a problem. Mm. Right? What being safe means is if you have a problem, what will happen to you? If you were to black out and you're overweighted and you have no one watching you, what will happen is you will sink down to the bottom of the ocean. 2 minutes later, you'll take terminal gasp and you'll be dead. That's not safe. All you're doing is crossing your fingers and saying you hope you don't black out. And the problem is, this is such a hard thing to convince to people. People say, well, I don't push myself. I know my limits. I'm in tune with my body. So here's the shocking thing. Whenever I've got videos, I've got this one video that I use a lot. It's a video of a spearfisherman who has 30 years of experience. So he's way more freediving experience than I have. 30 years of experience. He typically dives by himself. He's overweighted, and he typically dives by himself. In this video, he was diving with 2 of my friends who are both freediving instructors, Ren and Ashley from Evolve Freediving, amazing instructors. And there's video. And so this is on a 50-foot dive. He's an 80-foot spearfisher. He regularly dives an 80-foot. So he's not diving crazy deep. He dives on a 50-foot. If it's a 50-foot dive, you see him, he shoots the fish, he's coming up. About 20 feet from the surface, you see the kick starting to get a little softer, right? And then you see, so the way when someone backs out underwater, you see release of air. So you see the bubbles coming out. Then when the release of air happens, because he's overweighted, he starts sinking down to the bottom. Now, of course, the guy with the camera was Ren Chapman, was a freediving instructor, was there. That's called an underwater blackout. Very easy to fix. He was there, able to take him to the surface, fix him. The guy was fine. But so there's a lot of things to unpack in that video. First off, when I show that video to the spearfishermen, I say, where was the point where that guy asked for help? And they're like, well, he didn't. I'm like, yeah, because now the physics behind this is rather complicated, but the partial pressure of oxygen drops extremely rapidly as we get near the surface. So when people say I would feel it coming or I would know my limits, no, actually you won't. There's video proof of someone who looks, he had, and my friends there talked about it because I felt fine. Any people that I talked to that had an underwater blackout say they felt fine. They felt nothing was wrong. And then boom, they go out. So when people say, but I don't push myself and I know my limits, actually really hold up in the real world. So it's so hard to convince people of that. And to make matters more confusing is not normal person, most people have tried holding their breath at some point. And if you've tried holding your breath at some point, if I were to draw a graph of discomfort over time, it would just be a 45-degree line. There's nothing earth-shattering about this graph that I'm drawing. The longer that you hold your breath, the more it hurts. Okay, Ted, that's brilliant. I already knew that. Okay, but you assume that also happens coming up from a free dive in the ocean. But because of the partial pressure of oxygen drops super rapidly near the surface, that's why you don't get that. That's why you can go from feeling fine to out, because the partial pressure drops. And so that's not intuitive. So people assume that, well, when I hold my breath on the couch, it gets harder, 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 harder. When I'm free diving, I just don't hold my breath. So there's a lot of things that can make it where it's hard to convince people of that. And so that's why a lot of people have this false insecurity, is they think that they don't push themselves, they've never had a problem. And it's very hard to convince them otherwise.
Yeah, well, it makes sense, because if, you think you know your limits, but then if you just black out just like that, that limit is, you can't recognize it, can you?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's like a mechanical failure in scuba. I mean, like, I don't care how good a scuba diver you are. I mean, like, it doesn't matter how good you are, you can have a mechanical failure.
Yeah.
And if you have a system in place to fix that, you'll be fine. Right. But I mean, I'm sure, you guys know there are scuba divers that are, they always say there's nothing more dangerous than a scuba diver with 100 dives under their belt that's never had anything wrong happen to them. Because then they just ignore all those stupid little rules they got taught in their scuba class, and they think that they're so comfortable in the water that the rules don't apply to them. I'm like, look, when you can't breathe underwater, I don't care how uncomfortable you think you are scuba diving, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And so it's, when you have a mechanical failure as a scuba diver, your procedures that you have in place are going to determine if that's a safe outcome or not. And it's the same thing with freediving. I mean, as long as you have the procedures in place, let's put it this way. I know people talking about blackouts, and it seems crazy, and rescuing someone from blackout. I've rescued a lot of drowning scuba divers and snorkelers. That is a nightmare, because they're trying to kill me as I'm rescuing them. Rescuing a blacked out freediver is like the easiest thing in the world. They don't move. You put them on their back, take their mask off, blow across their eyes. They wake up and they're like, what the hell happened? And I'm like, you blacked out. And they're like, no, I didn't, whatever. Like, it's so easy. I mean, it really is, compared to rescuing a drowning person. Rescuing a drowning person is, you can get hurt doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all this proves, take a free diving course.
Yeah. So, I always say that the safety course that I talk about, freedivesafety.com, is 100%, is not a substitute for taking a freediving course. But what it is it's free and it's instant, right? It's free. It at least get you on the right path. And one of my favorite stats, because I've got a survey that people take, and one of my favorite stats is, there's a couple of them. One is 94%. I just posted this the other day. I remember the numbers. 94% say this course makes them want to take a freediving course, which is super cool. And then 99% of them, 99.4 said it will make them dive safer, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, well, we'll have a look at that, and we'll put the link to the site in the show notes so people can have a look at it, and hopefully it leads to bigger things.
It is. It's amazing, that you've done that, and that's a resource that people can just go on and get that information.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've definitely, that's one of the things I've been working on recently, is how to do a much better job of promoting that and getting that thing in. So I've had almost just shy of 5,000 people go through the program. So on the one hand, it's like, wow, that's great. But on the other hand, like, that number needs to be like, it needs to be 50,000, it needs to be 100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we're considering how many people are out there that don't have access to it. So I'm going to start working with some other people to get that, give it a lot more exposure than, I just can myself.
Yeah, well, it's great that you do, the daily broadcast of safety things, because it's all about communication and education.
And so when I do those,
I don't think anyone else is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, it's a pain in the butt. I've done 202 in a row. Wow.
I think it's amazing. Yeah.
And so what I know is, my mission is always safety. But here's one thing I know for a fact, because I've been doing this a long time. People don't care about safety. They're not like, oh, how can I learn to be a safer? They're not getting on the internet going, how can I learn to not black out? They want to dive deeper. They want to stay longer. They want performance. And so the way I do everything, it's like, I have all these online courses, and the safety stuff is, so it's like the carrot and the stick. The carrot is, oh, you want to hold your breath longer? You want to dive deeper? You want to learn how? Yeah, I've got training programs. I can show you to do all that stuff. And then once I get them, I force them. Like, in all my, I've got a course called Freediving Training Secrets, which is a training program, but literally it forces them. They can't access anything until they go through an hour and a half of safety videos. They have to pass the quiz with a score of 100%. And only if they do that do they unlock the other stuff. Yeah. Right. So all of my stuff, I use the carrot and the stick, right? Come here, you learn to be a better diver. And then I whack them with the safety stick and force them to do something they don't want to do, because, that's why, like, for instance, the daily freedom advice videos, I'm so passionate about safety, but I know that I try to only talk about that like once a week. Like, if I know, if I just, all I did was that, everyone would tune out. And like, oh, the guy's talking about how to not black out. I don't care about that. So I know I have to, kind of mix in the messages and
it's
and
good.
give them, it's like you've heard that you give them what they give them what they want. There's what they want. And there's also what they need. So I try to give them what they want, but then I really have to give them what they need.
Yeah.
Which is the safety stuff.
Well, it's important.
It is, and especially if it saves somebody's life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember after a week or 3 weeks after launching that safety course, someone called me up, and the Deeper Blue did an article about it, that he saved his buddy's life from underwater blackout, and they were out spearfishing, and he had never taken a freedive course. Just from going through the safety course, he was able to recognize the signs and knew how to fix it. So that's pretty cool.
And it's good because if, hopefully everybody wants to better themselves and learn more. And, that's a perfect way. It's accessible. It's online.
Yeah. Again, I mean, for folks that are listening, the single best thing you can do is take a freediving course, 100%. I mean, there's just like the fastest way to get good fast, because I mean, like, the safety course, is great knowledge, but I mean, we don't teach CPR by watching videos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can learn about CPR by watching a video, but if your family member needs CPR and you watched a video of me doing it 2 years ago, you wouldn't feel super confident about. If you need to do CPR on your family member, you want to have taken a CPR course. You need to get on your hands and knees. You need to use the dummy. You need to do the thing. But in freediving, at least they get the information side of it first. But yeah, so if you are interested in if freediving sounds interesting, one of the best things you can do is take an in-person course. They are more. I mean, it used to be 10 years ago, there weren't a lot of options. Almost every scuba agency I'm aware of teaches freediving now. So there's more and more places to actually take a freediving course, which is awesome.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it gets more people in the water as well, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And the dive shops, it just seems so obvious. I mean, I used to get so mad with the dive people. They're like, we don't want to do freediving because I'll lose my customers. I'm like, lose your customer. They're in your shop taking a freediving. You didn't lose anything. You just sold them more stuff. Seems so obvious to me. Every freediving course, at the end of it, you pitch them the scuba course. At the end of every scuba course, you pitch them the freediving course. Another way to, I mean, like, the other thing is like, every dive shop owner knows if you want to sell gear, the way you do that is classes. So like all these dive shops were like, I'd be coming in there and I'd be teaching. They want me to come in and teach a class for them or something. And they're like, well, we've got all this freediving gear and we can't sell them. Again, because you don't do freediving. I come in here like once a year to teach a freediving course, but like, how do you sell your scuba gear? Oh, we do lots of scuba classes. You should do lots of freediving classes too. It's like the scuba industry has been a little resistant and not super understanding of the freediving stuff. But I hope this is getting better now that all the agencies are behind it.
Well, I mean, that's good. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like the diving world at all.
Do you hear more and more about freediving from like the scuba industry?
I wouldn't say. I don't think so. I think it seems to be like singular like that. I think.
And it's seeing people in social media do it. That's probably the only way that.
Yeah.
It's an obvious link, and then seeing where you can do a course in the UK, but particularly the UK.
That's also probably is where you are. I mean, like when you're in like South Florida, where the water's clear and warm. I mean, all the dive shops are teaching freediving, so I mean, I think that has something to do with it. It's just the geographical.
Yeah.
Well, there is. You look at some of the videos that you can see, and you think, "Wow, look at that! It always looks amazing. It always looks lovely in blue, or it's warm." And
free dive in a dry suit.
Well, you can think of someone like as D or My D. He's another guy who's always in the water, always doing searching for treasure and all this sort of stuff. And all his videos are always really blue, really clear. And you think, wow, that looks awesome. And he's got, I don't know how many million followers on YouTube. And you think, well, to do that in this country, it's going to be black, it's going to be dark, it's going to be cold, it's going to be
not so exciting,
hardly any visibility at all, and it's really a lot tougher to do that sort of thing, really, to where you can win people over enough to get them to do it. I'm not saying it's not possible, because it is possible, but you got to find your places
Yeah, and we know
free-
people that have done free diving in the UK. We've got obviously the South Coast in the summer is perfect for it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Y'all know, do you know of Emma Farrell? She's a freediving instructor based out of the UK, very, very active. She ought to be, so if you want to do more about freediving locally in your area, you should definitely reach out to her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely will. Yeah, and we've got Porthcaris down on the Cornwall.
Okay.
Georgie Miller.
Oh
freediver.
yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah.
I met her at the World Championships. I think that was a long time ago. But yeah, she's super. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I did register for the course this summer, but had to cancel it because of Dad. But yeah, definitely we'll try and do it next summer. So
Yeah,
South Coast is popular for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I always just think it's, especially for what you guys do. I mean, being in this where you are in the industry, it would make sense to tap your toe in it, see what's going on. And but yeah, all I have to say is it's because you are obviously passionate scuba divers. I just don't see any reason that you wouldn't love freediving as well, because you have all the main components checked, right? You like being in the water.
Yeah,
It's just you just don't really know how to hold your breath that long, and that's the easiest thing to fix. That's really easy to fix.
It's definitely on the list. Definitely. Yeah. So all of our guests, we always ask some set questions. So if you could take 3 people under the water, either free diving, scuba, they don't obviously have to, they can be past, present. Who would you take and why?
Let's see. So one would be Bob Croft. That's I always say Kirk is the father of modern freediving the educational system. And Bob Croft is the grandfather, right? So he was the first U.S. record holder freediver. I've met him. He's the coolest guy. But so, yeah, if I could take him. Second one would be Kirk, just because I don't get to see him much anymore. He's so famous now, and he's doing the Avatar series, and now he's got some other crazy job. If I could pull him in for this just to get to go diving with him, that would be cool.
Oh.
One more. Let's see. I'd like to take Jacques Cousteau. Actually, I don't want to take him. I want to put him through a freediving course and then take him freediving.
Yes, that's good.
See what it's like.
Yeah, because he did amazing depths just on scuba, didn't he? Yeah. There's some good answers.
Excellent. What gets you, because you are obviously a confident guy, what gets you out of your comfort zone then, where you feel, oh, I'm just a bit nervous about this?
This probably isn't the answer you're looking for, but I can say exactly what I'm doing right now, which is I took a successful freediving business. I was based in Fort Lauderdale, and the reason I was in Fort Lauderdale is that was the best city, and I thought it was the best city in the United States for me to teach freediving classes. I call teaching freediving being a human yo-yo, because I set a line out in the ocean, I dive up and down the line, right? So that was my human yo-yo business, was in Fort Lauderdale, and I recently moved to the North Georgia mountains where there is no freediving whatsoever. So that's been quite terrifying to leave the ocean. And now, as you guys have started to see, transition into this online model, right? I'm not running freediving classes anymore. I will at some point, but I'm just trying to now my business is completely different. Right now I'm focusing on, how can I use Zoom and do, I've done things like the Double Your Breath Hold Challenge and freediving training secrets and these daily freedom advice. So I'm trying to figure out how to do all that. And so it's terrifying because it's a new business. I have my business all figured out. It was working on autopilot. Now I've managed to screw it all.
Well, that's good, isn't it? You're just pushing yourself to other limits.
I mean, the cool thing is, I was just looking the other day. Before, when I'm teaching in-person classes, I help 5 people a week. So I can, I can help 100 people a year. I can impact those 5 people, those 100 people. They got a great deal. They got a great class. They can dive deeper. They're safe and all that stuff. I'm now, helping 3, 4, sometimes 500 people a week, because I'm doing online, it's just doing things differently. So it is kind of exciting that I'm able to have a much bigger impact on the freediving spearfishing community now that I'm actually not in the water, which is kind of hard to wrap your head around. But it seems to make sense, and everything is all this online stuff. So that's what it's terrifying for me, is trying to figure all this out.
Yeah, no, that's good. And all the social media these days, it's a thing you've got to do, isn't it? It's not, you can't not be part of it.
I cannot tell you how not fun doing daily freedom advice videos. I mean, in some ways it's fun, but it's like, it shouldn't be that much work. It's hard to do that stuff every day. Not this one.
Yeah. No, very good. And then our final question: if you had a billboard, so you could put this out to the entire world, everybody could see it. You could put an image, a statement, a video on it. What would you put on your billboard and why?
So I'm thinking of two. Oh gosh, wow, that's a tough question. So one, I think if I could somehow, I've got a really cool picture of me holding up the check for $2,000 in the award, and somehow tie that into promoting freedivingsafety.com. That's just an ad. Wow, this is the tough one, but a billboard. I think that's what, no, I wouldn't have that picture. It would just have, I've got a freediving safety logo. It would say freedivingsafety.com. And the tagline that I always say is dive safe out there. It's not even that hard, especially when you learn for free at freedivingsafety.com. That's what it would be.
Yeah. Good one.
That's good. Yeah. And anything that's free appeals to people, doesn't it?
Yes. You certainly can't charge for safety because they don't even want it when it's free. That would be the worst model ever. Pay to learn how to kill yourself. Pay. I don't even want to learn how not to kill myself. So yeah, that wouldn't work.
Like our podcast is always free to download. So
yes.
We should mention actually some people that we've been talking about that we spoke to a while back. So we first spoke to Kirk back in January 2021, and then we spoke to Kirk again in December 2022 when he came on to tell us all about Avatar.
And Kate
2.
Winslet, wasn't it? Yeah.
And how I think she held her breath for 7 minutes, 7+ minutes, was amazing. And we spoke to Emma Farrell and John Vickers about Blue Abyss in June 2021. Wow. So for anyone want to go back to those previous episodes and hear us chatting to those and get their answers on those same questions.
Yeah, that's great. You've interviewed some awesome freediving folks.
No, it's, and who was it? Helena Budillan.
Yeah. She was the British record holder, wasn't she? Isn't she?
So are the freediving episodes doing well?
Yes, well, I think obviously when we bring your episode out, that will hopefully entice people back to listen to some of the freediving ones. Yeah, and Georgie Miller was really good. We did what we call a little big chat with her and did a YouTube video. And
that's great. Yeah, she's awesome. Another one you might want to think about is not so much because he's the world's best freediver, but is Dan Verhoeven. He
a husband or a partner.
Yeah. He's the most famous freediving videographer and photographer there is, because he is always hired to be the main one for the world championships, vertical blue, they call it the Wimbledon and the freediving competition. So I mean, all those amazing images that make freediving what it is. He's if you look at any amazing image on freediving, he's probably taken it. So he's just a really funny guy. I interviewed him for my freediving summit. And he was one of my favorite interviews. It wasn't because it was about like how to be the world's best freediver. It's just that he was a really funny guy. So
we'll look him up then. Yeah, definitely. That's anything to broaden the knowledge of freediving and how it. Yeah,
we like to try and broaden it. And the two do go hand in hand. And same with some other like water sports. Whether it's paddleboarding and things like that. And I think you're right, with the safety in mind, there's stuff for scuba divers to learn definitely with free diving, and vice versa. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a dive master working on a boat and you're taking out free divers, I mean, as a scuba instructor, I mean, I thought I knew a lot of stuff. I knew nothing about any of the safety stuff for freediving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an entry-level freediving student will know more than a PADI course director when it comes to what blackouts are. They're just two completely different skill sets. And I didn't understand that at all, because if you don't know any better, you don't know any better. But definitely something that like dive shops and if they're taking freedivers out, they should understand this stuff.
So I think that'd be good for maybe me and Gemma to I'm going to volunteer as well to do your online course.
Yeah. So you go through the safety course if you are really gung-ho. So my flagship of all the courses that I've been making online courses for over a decade. So I retired one recently, and the newest one, the best one that I have, is called Freediving Training Secrets. Now, it is basically it's a at-home freediving plan that you can do without going to the pool or the ocean. So it's all in freediving terms, we call it dry land training.
Yeah.
So basically, like each week, after you do the safety videos, so you have to do all that before you unlock all that fun stuff. Then I'm basically going to say, all right, so week 1, I want you to do these 3 exercises. It'll take 20 minutes, 3 days a week. And they're going to be specific breath holding exercises. In week 2, we're going to do a different sort of breath holding exercises, building on what you did the week before. And then week 3, we're going to build on what you did week 1, 2. So you kind of progress through. And what's interesting is it's designed to teach you how to increase the easier part of the breath holding. I mean, if you don't have the understanding of breath holding, you understand that when you hold your breath a long time, the end of it's going to be not super comfortable, right? If you hold your breath a long time, right? And so what this is focusing on is how to increase that easier portion of the breath hold, which is like what everyone wants, right? So it's something that, I have more and more people that go through that program. Some people do it to get ready for a freediving course, because they're like, hey, like I'm a little nervous, or this breath holding stuff makes me nervous. And so if you could practice the breath holding before you showed up for class, because when you get into the class, you have very little time actually in the water with the instructor. So I always joke that, like, if it's the ocean session and my students about to, doing a 60-foot dive, my entry level course goes to 6 feet, right? So if they're doing, let's say, a 50-foot dive, and I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, okay, that looked pretty good, but your elbow was like way out here, so you're creating a lot of drag, and your toe was like this, so it was creating a lot of drag, and they're like, Ted, I'm just trying to not die. I'm like, my body is like, I don't care the way my toe is pointed. I feel so uncomfortable, because you've never held your breath before. And so when I started including these dry land training programs for free in my actually freediving programs before they showed up, it made a huge difference, because then their body wasn't screaming at them the whole freediving course, why aren't you breathing?
Yeah. I've just got one more question for people maybe with like asthma or some kind of lung condition. Are there any benefits learning to free dive? Does it increase your lung capacity? Has that been looked at?
Yeah, they're absolutely. I mean, well, we've proven for a fact that especially freediving, there's particular freediving stretches that we teach that absolutely increase lung volume. Like, yeah, we absolutely know that can be done. I always said that can never be done, but we've proven. I mean, there's a reason the freedivers have these big lungs. There's specific stretches that we do for freediving, and just like it also, and just like a freediving course, we just like a scuba course, is there's going to be medical questionnaires and all that kind of stuff that you got to fill out. What I will tell you is that as a scuba instructor, I don't care what the boss or the agency said. I did not like having people that had asthma when scuba diving when I was doing it, because if you have an asthma attack underwater, you're 100% underwater, it seems like it's a bad thing. But for freediving, it's less of an issue, because you're always you're short from the surface, right? It's always it's an easy way to get to the surface. But then when you take your freediving course, you're gonna do the same thing that you did with your scuba course. You're gonna fill out your medical waiver and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, to answer your original question is yes, it absolutely does. We can increase your lung volume that way. Yeah, for sure.
It's gotta be good.
Yeah, and for like lung performance, like athletes generally have like better lungs, don't they? Because they're obviously training and pushing their bodies. So do you become more efficient in your lungs as a free diver? And do you have to be physically fit to be?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned this in the very beginning. So that so remember I said, like, you watch a video of a free diver and almost any person and go, oh my God, that looks so cool. You know, of course I would, that looks awesome. And then comes the big but I can only hold my breath for 30 seconds, but I'm too old, but I'm too out of shape, right? If you want to be a world record free diver, you have to be an elite athlete.
Mm.
If you want to be a free diver, so I always joke that I've got a body built by beer, bourbon, and barbecue. I am not an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination. Yet my deepest free dive is 279 feet. My longest breath hold is 7 minutes. I had a student once. I've had big out of shape students doing 100-foot dives, right? So the biggest thing is, you know, if you're a scuba diver, that's all you have the aptitude, athletic ability you need to be a free diver. You might not have the athletic ability to be a world record free diver, nor do I. I don't want to be a world record free diver. I know how difficult that is. I'm too lazy. But I mean, like, if you're an active scuba diver, you have all the capacity you ever need to take a free diving class and be a good free diver.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember that student that I talked about. I was on a radio show, and there was a host who was very, very large and out of shape guy, and I was talking, well, you know, I had a student that you know, I'm like, he probably weighed like 250 pounds, and like, you know, he maybe had a hard time walking up 4 flights of stairs, but you know, he did a 100-foot dive. And as I was telling the story about the student, and then after the radio show was over, I went to Waffle House, and the student called me, and I'm like, oh no, I hadn't heard from him in like 2 years. I'm like, I know this guy really well. I know him really well. I can't imagine he's upset that I didn't say his name, but I'm like, he knew I was talking about him. I can't imagine he's the kind of person that would be upset that I like talked about he was overweight and he was out of shape. And so I was like, oh my God, did I just do something? And I called him. He's like, oh my God, I heard the interview and it was great. He's like, but man, Ted, you're selling yourself short. I'm not 250. I'm like 275. I was like, oh no, I thought like upset him somehow. But I mean, you know, I'll just tell you that, you know, it's your athletic ability is, as long as you're an active person. I mean, like, if you're a scuba diver, that's not going to impede your ability to take an entry-level freediving course, to do 3-4 minute breath holds, to do 60-foot free dives at all. That is absolutely not a reason to think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. Because the main thing is you know, you have the hard things. You're comfortable in the water. You want to be in the water. You're not afraid of the fish. You're not seasick. Those are things that are hard to fix.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when I have people in my freediving class that are terrified of the ocean, and we're in like 600 foot of water in my 25-foot boat, and they're about to jump into the ocean and drift for 3 hours, like, I can't, I'm pretty good. I can't fix that. Right? Scuba divers don't have that.
Yeah, no, very true. No, well, it's been really interesting, chatting to you and seeing that side of free diving. So if people want to learn more about what you do, where is the best place for them to learn more and even contact you?
So, you know, all my social media is Immersion, IMMERSIONFD, right? So it's all the same on all of those. So that's probably the best way. If you want to reach out directly via email for whatever reason, you can do so at info@immersionfreediving.com. When do you think this will air?
Probably it's going to be 4 weeks.
So then by then, my newest project should be online, which will be freediveuniversity.com. So that's going to be my one website where I have all the different courses that I have on, links to the podcast. You'll be able to sign up for the newsletter, because the problem is right now I've got stuff scattered all over the internet.
You want us to wait till that comes out?
Yeah, but in 4 weeks it'll be up.
Yeah.
But we can touch bases to make sure. But
yes, definitely. Yeah. Oh, well, that sounds exciting as well.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to launch the podcast with you and your new venture.
It's been awesome. You know, it's been really good, and I think there's a lot to learn for us all. And you know, getting safer in the waters, you know, it's a no-brainer. You know, why would you not want to?
Yes. Yeah, and seeing the link between scuba and free diving, and hopefully, some people will listen to this and think,
Yeah.
I want to try some
Give
free
that a
diving.
go.
I think when you take your freediving class, that will be an amazing podcast episode, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that are like, I've seen all those freedivers, but I don't know. Like, but you're
Yeah.
their trusted
I'll give
podcast
it a
host.
go.
Like, you guys should do an absolute, like a breakdown of like, this is what happened day one, this is what happened day two, this is what happened.
Yeah.
They would love
Yeah.
that.
Are you making any changes to that with your other projects that you've got coming out?
What's the question?
So are you making any changes to that course, over
Oh
the
no,
course of
well
the next
no,
few
Freediving
weeks?
Training Secrets is still gonna be the same website.
Okay.
That's still gonna be there. The main thing is is I've got so much stuff all over the place. I've got some online courses on the Teachable platform. I've got some on
Okay.
ClickFunnels platforms. I've got my podcast. I've got all these articles I wrote on this blog, and I've got articles on another blog, and I've got articles like in all these different places. I just want one website where people can go to, where they can go to the newsletter, they can get all the stuff that I have, and then I'll be launching a school from there as well. But that'll be the next.
How do you find time for it all? Do you have anyone that help you?
No, I'm like the dumb entrepreneur that does everything myself. But it's pretty cool. I mean, I've learned to build funnels. I've done, so it's I'm stubborn, and then I have to do, I do everything myself, but it's also good because I learn a lot.
Yeah.
But it also means it's just I'm very slow to do things, because I'm like not hiring people to do the work. I'm like, oh, now I have to learn to build the funnel, and now I have to learn to do this.
Yeah.
So
No, well, it's credit to you. That's really
It
good.
is.
Yeah, definitely.
it's very
Yeah.
stubborn.
Well, dedicated as well, and enthusiastic, and that's a great combination. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on the Big Scuba podcast, Ted. It's been a great chat with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. And the last thing I'll say is just consider me. You're one phone call away, one email away. I'm your freediving resource. If you have questions about anything at all, just know you can always call me. You can always email me, and I'll be more than happy to help however I can.
Excellent.
That's
Well, I really
brilliant. Thank you very
appreciate that.
much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Hey
Okay.
guys,
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Cheers,
we'll
Ted.
be-
Thank you
we'll
very
be-
much.
Right.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thanks, Ted.
Cheers,
Bye.
Ted. Thank you very much. Wow. How good was that?
It's really good. Yeah, but it's so enthusiastic and jolly and happy and positive, but with that element of safety.
Well, I hope you didn't mind me volunteering you, because I thought I was sort of sitting there thinking, really should do this.
Yeah,
it's
no,
really good
definitely.
for
I
us
think
to do.
anything where we're going to learn something new, something extra that we can apply.
Well,
No,
yeah, exactly. I'm not promising that we're going to become the next, we're now going to start doing free diving and all that, next year. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm keeping an open mind. Let's
Yeah.
do the course and see how that goes. And I think the longest breath hold I've ever done is probably about 1:10.
I think we need to do the course, and then, well, we need to practice or do a breath hold, and then do
Yeah.
the course, and then do.
I remember being at Bannatynes and I did 2 lengths of Bannatynes pool.
I know I'd be
She's-
pretty.
That's a
lovely.
20-meter pool, and I did, so it's 40-meter.
Yeah,
And then back a bend. So I probably did about a 50-meter swim underwater.
yeah. I'd
But that was a while ago.
I lost about 30 seconds. But I think it's really interesting that having that knowledge of breath holds can help your lung capacity.
Well, that's what I'm interested in, because I think, well, what is it that, what's the key to the door to understand what we need to know? Because anyone can hold their breath. You just stop breathing, don't you? Right? But what is the stuff that we don't know yet to then enable us to take that on further, so we're not just holding a breath, and as Ted said, it comes really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It then becomes manageable, because when Kurt Crack came on and he explained about Avatar and how he got some of them stars like Kate Winslet to hold her breath up to, who's never done any free
No, brand new
anything
into
like
it.
that,
Yeah.
but was up to 7 minutes, same as Ted, holding her breath underwater in for filming. What that then must become management of your air, isn't it? As Ted was saying, you know, and I think that must be awesome to be able to, you know, maybe get comfortable where you can say, oh, I can hold my breath for a minute comfortably.
And also it's a bit of a confidence builder, knowing that you can be underwater in that state and you can hold your breath for longer than a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that just sounds impossible at the moment, to hold your breath.
What's interesting is what you said about asthma. With people with asthma, how that can then, how you said, you know, they've proved it, that actually helps. And when you think about it, you know, you go to the gym and you lift weights and you go on a run machine and things like that. And when you do it regularly, that becomes easier, doesn't it?
Yes.
So after a while, you can lift more weight, you can run a bit faster or run a bit longer. So why wouldn't the same apply when you're doing breathing exercise?
Yeah. And if your volume
muscle,
the volume of your lungs is increasing, means that you can get more air in, you know, for people that are challenged with asthma or other issues, then that can only be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, well, I think so. And I think, you know, we're not saying about diving all of a sudden, you know, if you scuba dive and holding your breath, we know that's the first rule you don't do, hold your breath when you're diving. But if your body, through sheer learning about free diving and those techniques, your body now can maintain that intake of air.
Yes. Yeah.
That's got to mean that you will be you'll be using less air consumption when you're scuba diving.
Yeah. And that's something that, we should really implement and see.
Yeah. So I think we should. And I should be having a look at that. Yeah.
And I think it's really good to see the crossover between scuba and freediving and scuba. So they are different sports, but they complement each other as well. And
well, they do. And you can see why, and again, Ted is right. You know, you can see why the diving agencies have all be offering that as well, because it's good business to do, isn't it? And to cross network that and say, right, okay, you're a diver now, you learned how to scuba dive, and you know, would you like to learn how to free dive as well? If you love the water, why not?
Yes, yeah. And we have seen some fellow scuba divers go into free diving. Grace is one that I can think of straight away.
Yeah.
And that she did the course down in Porthcaris. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from any listeners out there if you have taken a free diving course and how it's benefited your scuba diving.
And maybe next year we should look into, because I know you, but I didn't really have the time this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do it this summer.
Honey doing her scuba diving and what have you. You know, didn't really have the time to do that down in Cornwall. But next year, hey, maybe it might be.
Maybe Scuba Honey would like to try it. That's
yeah, I think she might. Yeah, I think she might.
Yeah, so we need to get that sorted. But no, it was really interesting. So have a look at Ted, his website and the free guide.
We should also say follow him on social media for his daily, because they're really good and they're all various. They're not just like, oh, you know, oh, you want to use this for all that. It's nothing like that. They're good. They're 60-second snippet of something of a skill or a bit of, you know,
advice
a top tip.
Yeah, and with Ted's enthusiasm, and it's great. Yes, yeah.
I usually follow them and often reshare them on LinkedIn for our followers, and and give him a like. So she'll continue doing that. So do that.
Yeah. So that was Ted Harty.
That was, and don't forget those previous episodes. So I'll just say them again. So we spoke to Kurt Crack in December 2022 about Avatar, and then first off January 2021, my goodness, and Emma Farrell, she came on with John Vickers in June 21, talking about Blue Abyss that she was involved in, and she also talked about the free diving.
Yeah.
And also you mentioned Helen, and that was on YouTube, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So if that's really good. So we'll put the links and we'll promote those when this podcast comes out. And
yeah. We should also give our praise and thanks to our good friends at 90. These episodes are sponsored by them, and we should say thank you very much. If you are in the tech diving world, or military, or in the commercial diving world, or maybe you're just thinking about getting into diving, and you think, what dive computer do I need? Well, they've got the answer. They've got the Shearwater Peregrine for you. And all you need to do is go to 90to90.com and have a look, or even give them a call once you've been to their website. They've got UK stock, and any questions about rebreathers and twin sets and things like that, and dive computers, give them a call and they'll have the answer.
Yeah, just pick up the phone. There's always people there with lots of advice, or they'll put you in contact with somebody in the team that can help.
Yeah, it's been a long one, and but we hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can contact us by email or any of our social media, and if you've got any questions, and maybe you've tried Ted's online course, let us know what you think, and that'd be good to hear. And if you've got any thoughts on anything you've heard, perhaps let's hear, and let's start a discussion. That'd be really good. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, because that helps your dive buddy find us. And main thing is just keep safe while you're diving.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for downloading this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.
So that was the
Big Scuba Podcast.
See you soon. Now that does wrap up today's episode of the Big Scuba Podcast. But if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button depending on what platform you are listening on. That way you will never miss an episode from us. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts and did enjoy what you heard today, we would really appreciate it if you head to the show page to leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help us. If you do, please take a screenshot of that review and send it to us on Instagram, and we'll give you a shout out to say a big thank you. If you have any questions for us, or anything that has been mentioned in today's episode, be sure to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms, or send us an email. The links are in the show notes. We will get back to you no matter what. If you have made it to this point in the episode, we both want to say a big thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.